Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm joined by Zara. Zara, how are you?
Good this afternoon. How are you, Jordan?
Yeah, I'm also good this afternoon.
We've had a little chocky hit, haven't we?
Yeah, we did. Packet of, what were they, 12s?
12 bites, which 12s are a slept-on chocolate.
They're great. What was it? The other one?
Top Deck
Yeah,
balls
they're cool.
too.
They're cool. But yeah, little 3 p.m. pick-me-up.
Yeah.
What's been going on?
What's been going on? We've been recording podcasts for the last 2 days.
We have.
We've been busy little bees.
Yep. It's always fun. It also gets a bit tricky towards the back end of day 2. So
yeah. Hence the chocolate pick-me-up.
Exactly. Today we're doing a second part in our 2-part series on Google Ads, specifically a deep dive on metrics, matching and some negatives as well.
Yep.
So do you want to give a quick summary of what we spoke about in that first episode for the listeners that haven't listened to that yet?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about, I guess, which businesses Google Ads can be really powerful for and how to understand when is the right time to engage in Google Ads as a platform. Obviously looking into like research, looking at your budgeting and cash flow and those kinds of things, and really looking into using a few different software that we spoke about. Google Trends, we spoke about SEMrush. We also spoke about the Google Keyword Planner, so free and paid software that can utilize, and then essentially just starting small, being able to track results and learning how to optimize the account. Were kind of the core things that we spoke about. But yeah, today we're sort of taking that next step into optimization and understanding kind of what's working, how it's working, and we'll talk a little bit or mostly talk about what metrics to have a look at and like definitions behind them, as well as negative keywords, which is a really important part of your optimization of the campaigns too.
Perfect. I think it's probably one of the more important episodes if you are looking at doing paid advertising. Let's jump in and we'll talk about what metrics we can track and how to analyze them.
Great. So there's a few metrics that we look at. There's probably 6 that I'll chat about today. There's a lot that we can go into, but there's just 6 that are, I guess, top level, probably quite important to look at and think about, or 7 because there's 2 in my first one actually. But impressions and impression share are the first 2 that we'll chat about. So impressions is essentially just the number of times your ad has been shown to a user. Super basic, but quite an important metric because it essentially shows and tells you that your ads are being seen or they're not. Essentially, if it's a high number of impressions, lots of people are seeing your ads. If it's a low number of impressions, not many people are seeing your ads. It doesn't necessarily mean people are clicking on your ads, which I think is a really key distinction there. But it essentially just shows like, are your ads being seen by people?
Yep.
Is the platform showcasing that?
Yep.
So the second part of that is your impression share, which is a percentage. And so it's the percentage of eligible impressions that your ads can receive. So it helps you to understand if there's something that your ads are missing out on. So if there's potential reach out there that you aren't capitalizing on. And if it's low, it could mean, if that search impression share is low, it could mean it's a result of budget, like you don't have enough money, you're not putting enough money into the account. It could also mean that the quality of your ad isn't good enough.
Yep.
And so again, they're kind of things that you can go into a little bit more. And that's probably something that I think as a business owner, there's some core they're 2 things that you want to be able to understand. In terms of if your search impression share is low and being able to optimize and improve that, that's what you would rely on a Google specialist for. You probably don't necessarily need to know how to go in and do that. You just need to be able to say, okay, impression share's, not great. What are we going to do to fix that? Being able to recognize and I guess like highlight those metrics is important.
Yeah, for sure.
So the third and fourth metrics that we're going to chat about is clicks and click-through rate. So these are probably the most commonly talked about. And when you kind of set up your Google Ads account, it's one of like the innate metrics that automatically appears. So clicks, pretty straightforward. It's a number of times users click on your ads. And then your click-through rate, again, that's a percentage. So we talk about that through meta ads as well, but essentially it's a percentage of impressions that result in clicks. So it kind of gives you that understanding of, cool, how strong or how compelling is my ad copy at generating engagement and getting people through to my website? How well are my keywords closely aligned with my ad copy? It can kind of talk about like your landing page experience as well. So essentially you want to kind of have a look at like if that click-through rate is low or high, and the kind of, I guess, benchmark varies by industry. But generally I would say that if you can get a higher click-through rate, you're going to get a better quality score, which we'll talk about, and it's also going to reduce your cost per acquisition or cost per conversion, which is the goal as well.
I know we've only spoken about 4, but they seem to be the 4 that you always hear about.
Yes.
It's like usually so click-through rate, the CTR, and then your impressions as well. I know because when I log into the Google Ads Manager or whatever it's called, they're the default settings.
They're the default
and then there's
settings.
obviously the conversions too, which we'll jump into.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're really common, really good to understand. But yeah, they're kind of, I guess, like those initial metrics, and then you sort of go a bit deeper, which is where we talk about 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 5, 6 now.
There we go.
5th and 6th is conversions and your conversion rate. So your conversions, pretty straightforward. Purchases, leads, inquiries, those kinds of things. So the action that you want somebody to take after clicking on your ad. And then your conversion rate, again, it's a rate, so it's a percentage. It's the percentage of clicks that result in those conversions.
Yep, okay.
Again, super important. It actually shows you if your ads are generating sales or generating leads. And I think the core thing here, and probably one of the things that I see as one of the most common mistakes when we take over a Google Ads account, is the conversion tracking isn't set up accurately.
What does that mean?
Good question. So essentially, if you don't have your conversion tracking set up accurately through tracking metrics, through Google Tag Manager, there's a few different ways that you can do it. You just aren't getting accurate information on whether the campaign is generating results for you. So it could be doing really well and you're not seeing it. It could also be, which I've seen before, double counting conversions.
Oh, yeah.
So it says that there's 10 sales or 10 leads and there's actually only 5 because of how it's been set up incorrectly. So it's super important. And yeah, like I said, that's probably one of the most common things. And one of the things that we look at first when we take over an account is, cool, if we can get access to the back end of your website, and if you've got Google Tag Manager set up, and we can get into that as well. If you don't, typically we'll set it up for you. And then we look at the conversion tracking and just be like, cool, is this accurate? We go through like step by step to make sure that it is ourselves and that we're seeing the results coming through.
Excellent. And do you think as a business owner, they're the main ones? I know there's more and we're going to go through more because it's never ending. But just to reiterate, which we spoke about in that first episode, it's having that baseline understanding. So then when you are sitting with whoever's doing your ads, you can understand what they're talking about with CTRs and what the impressions are, and
Absolutely.
if something's low, and what can be done in order to improve that, and if the CTR is too high, then what's the issue? So it's just about having a really good baseline understanding of what these metrics mean.
Yeah, because then you also want to be able to, again, you don't need to know, I mean, you absolutely can. It's going to be difficult and requires a lot of training and optimizations and active work to be able to make these changes in the account and to be able to improve the results. But if you have a baseline understanding of those 6 metrics that we just spoke about, you will be able to have a really strong conversation with whoever is managing your ad account, which is really important. The next kind of 3 that I'll chat through are things that, again, good to be aware of. You'll probably hear about, but they're, I guess, like they're result metrics, what I would say.
Yeah.
Like output metrics. So there's things that you can do, there's things that you can manipulate through input metrics, which is like your click-through rate, your conversion rate, those kind of things that you can manipulate as in the back end of the account, and you can change and you can determine what the results are going to be, if that makes sense.
Yes.
The next one I'll chat through is cost per conversion, CPC, or cost per acquisition, CPA, depending kind of who you're talking to, means the same thing. The average amount of money that you're paying for a sale. So if you've had 10 sales and you spend how much money, how much has that average cost per sale?
And that's pretty much the end result of all of the previous metrics we've spoken about. So your impression, click-through rates. How would you measure if the cost per conversion is good? Is it bad? Like, what does that look like?
So I think that's where it's really important to understand like your profit margins as a business as well, is being like, okay, what can I afford as a CPA or like a cost per acquisition or a cost per conversion? And what is my profit margin? How much can I afford to pay for someone to buy this product or someone to, generate a lead or submit an inquiry? So I know what I can kind of take home at the end of that.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, super important. Essentially the goal is you want to reduce your cost per acquisition or your cost per click or cost per conversion as much as possible whilst increasing your sales and your conversions.
Just goes to show you how important it is to have a really good understanding of the whole business.
Yes.
Your pricing, like it's so important, because if we're getting sales, and that's great, but if it's costing us $200-$300 and like we said in that last episode,
any money on a sale.
Exactly. We could be losing money before we even send the product out or offer the service. So it's really important to know your numbers holistically before diving into paid ads, whether it's Facebook or Google.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that kind of, I guess the other metric people will talk about is your return on ad spend, which everyone's probably heard of that.
ROAS.
Your ROAS. Essentially, how much money has been generated per dollar spent.
Yep.
Really common. A lot of every agency or freelancer will report on your return on ad spend. The next step is reporting on that return on investment. So factoring in not just the Google ad spend, but factoring in the servicing fee to understand how much money you're generating as a result.
Yep.
The final metric that I'll chat about is your quality score. Essentially, every ad or campaign that gets run, Google has a rating system, and it rates the quality and the relevance of your ads, of your keywords and your landing pages. And it essentially says, are they good? Are they crappy? Could they be better? And it kind of ranks them against everything else on the platform. And so there's three kind of components to your quality score. So your click-through rate or your expected click-through rate, your relevance, so how relevant your ad is to the search terms and the search queries that people are putting in there, and then the experience on your landing page. So factoring in things like your bounce rate and those kinds of things, but understanding, is your landing page doing a good job of converting people? Do people want to spend time, on your website or your landing page?
We briefly touched on landing pages in that first episode we did, but I think it'd be good to do a bit more of a deep dive. How would you know whether you need to adjust things on your landing page? Like, what metrics are you looking at, and what can you workshop to try and get a better click-through rate or whatever it is? What can you do?
Yeah, there's a few different things. So, your conversion rate's kind of a direct correlation of your landing page. Essentially, you can optimize your ad copy or your copy on your landing page. You can optimize what other information you're sharing on your website. I guess when we say landing page, it's like an individual page or it's a website.
What's a landing page? Let's also talk about that. A landing page, in my words, is essentially a page that doesn't go anywhere. It's built specifically for an ad.
Yes.
With the goal of capturing information.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what a landing page is. And a lot of the time we always suggest setting these landing pages up when you're doing ads, so that way you can track everything properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And the difference and the reason that we suggest it is when you have a website, there's a lot of different places that somebody can go.
Yep.
So you've got your Google Ads set up, you've got an ad that's running, someone clicks on your ad, they go to your website, and there's different products, there's different categories, there's different services they can look at. And so essentially there's this thing called analysis paralysis, and the more information that you have, it can kind of reduce the likelihood of someone converting. So what a landing page does is it essentially goes, okay, let's get rid of all of this other jargon that's irrelevant to the ad that I've created. I'm an electrician and I do, EV chargers, I install ceiling fans, I do general home maintenance, I do commercial work, but your ad is for ceiling fans. You don't need someone to learn all about the other areas of your business, because it's just going to confuse them and it's not actually what they've come to the search platform to look for.
Yep.
So what a landing page does is it goes, okay, this person wanted to know about ceiling fan installations. Here's a single page dedicated to just that. And you can still boost out the trust and the authority of the business by including reviews and videos and bringing your values and team photos into it and those kinds of things. But it's just about kind of reducing the likelihood of someone going somewhere else.
Yep. So it just goes to show that it's having a website is one thing, and that serves its purpose, but having a landing page has its own purpose as well. So I guess the main differentiation between the two is, would you say the website's more an SEO thing and the landing page is more for the PPC stuff?
Yeah, sure.
But do some people push their ads to the website?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people do. Maybe they don't have capacity to have landing pages. Maybe they only sell one product. And so you don't need a landing page because your website's built around an individual product.
Yep.
It really just maybe you've got a website that does convert at a really, really well. Maybe it's optimized in the right way.
Yeah, I think it's important that we mention the key differences with landing pages and the website and how they both have their own purpose.
Yep.
Let's chat through keyword matching options and what that is, keyword research, all of that stuff.
Yeah, and every agency, freelancer, Google specialist that you work with has a different I guess, way of doing it. They have a different kind of method. But there's 3 key word options or matching options, I would say. Broad, phrase, and exact match. And again, everyone does this differently. Everyone has like a different way of kind of setting up the account. Broad is essentially, think of it as like your widest. I guess maybe let's go back a little bit and like talk about what a keyword is. So essentially what someone is searching for in the search bar, and they go into Google, they type something in, there's keywords in that search query. So it might be coffee near me.
Yeah, okay.
That could be a search term. And then you might want to drop that into your campaign, right? So there's kind of 3 keyword matching options. So broad, phrase, and exact match. Broad is essentially like your widest net possible. So it's like your ads could show for something super relevant to you, but they also could show up for something that's not quite relevant. So you get a lot of reach, which can bring in a lot of information really quickly. You have a lot less control.
So quality will be bad.
So quality could be bad, yes. The next step kind of down that funnel, I guess, in terms of control is like a phrase match. So you do have more control here. Essentially, your ad will show for searches that include the exact phrase that someone's typed in that order, but it could have other words before or after it.
Right.
So it's kind of a balance of both. That's quite common, is a phrase match strategy. Again, because you have that little bit more control and you kind of can control what people are searching for a little bit more.
Yeah, okay, cool. And then we've got exact match.
Exact match, yes. And so that's kind of your most precise. It's your ads only show up for exactly what someone has searched for. So very high control, a much lower reach, which again, it kind of depends on the strategy behind the campaign that you've put together and your purpose. But it just means that you have a lot of control over who is seeing your ads. So if you're in an industry where there are some serious restrictions around like what you can and can't say, maybe an exact match kind of strategy makes sense. So yeah, it really depends. Again, I'm conscious that that's still quite top level. But again, thinking about a business owner coming into a conversation with an agency or whoever it is that they're working with, being able to kind of say, cool, what is our keyword strategy? Why are we doing broad match? Why are we doing phrase match? And, when someone sets it up as broad match, it just means, which is the next thing we'll chat about, they'll probably be really on top of negative keywords. Well, that's the goal, is that they will be in there every single day looking at things that essentially what you don't want your ads to show up for. So they can all work. They all have their own strategy. It just depends on the person behind the account and what their strategy is and their method that they've learned, really.
Yeah, okay. So there's no real cookie cutter approach with this broad phrase or exact match.
No.
Okay, cool. And is one more expensive than the other, or again, it's just preference?
So your broad match is going to be cheaper because essentially it's a super wide net. So it's bringing in a whole bunch of traffic. So your results are going to be inflated. Mm-hmm. Because there's a really large sample size, the cost of those results is probably going to be lower, but the quality of those results is also likely to be lower.
So you may get more results, but if the quality sucks, then it's costing you more.
Absolutely. And then your exact match, because there's a less chance of your ads showing and it has to be super refined, that could be a more expensive strategy for you.
Okay, cool. And if someone's starting out, does it matter what strategy they use, or again, it just depends?
I mean, if you're starting out, you've never done it before, I would probably start out with broad and phrase so that the algorithm can learn about you. So if it's got zero data and you go in and you're like, this is exactly what we want to show up for, this is our super refined kind of strategy, it's going to be quite hard because it's got nothing to go off. So if you kind of give it a little bit of control, I guess, like you loosen your control and you give Google more control, then you're kind of probably going to learn a little bit more. So you might start with like a broad and phrase match kind of combined strategy and kind of bring that into it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And negative keywords as well. It's something that we hear a lot about. Do you want to jump into that and what are negative keywords?
Essentially, you're like, do not show list. So if someone types in this, I don't want my ads to show up. And so again, depending on kind of your industry, maybe you're a physio, you don't want your ads to show up for chiro because it's irrelevant. Yep. Those people are searching for different things. Maybe you sell pink boots, you don't sell white boots. So anytime someone searches in white boots, you want white boots added to your negative keyword list because you don't sell it. And the reason you want to kind of be on top of your negative keyword list is A, you're paying for it if someone's clicking on it, but also you're potentially providing a pretty poor experience to the user. And the same with all of these platforms. Google, Meta, they want people to stay on that platform for as long as possible.
Yep.
And so the only way that people do that is if they have a good experience on the platform. And so if you as a business are essentially bidding for keywords that are irrelevant to your business, that's part of that ad ranking thing. Google will say, well, hold on a minute, you're paying for this, you're sending people to your website, you're trying to get traffic, but you don't actually sell this product. So people are bouncing off your website really quickly. So your bounce rate is going to be really high. And the amount of time that people are spending on your websites or your landing page is going to be quite low. And so then what the algorithm does is it goes through everything and it goes, well, hold on a second, all of these metrics are pretty bad. Well, what's the connection here? And that's all related to this particular campaign, this ad group, and these keywords. So that's really important. Again, there's kind of like an element of like competitor keywords here. So you will find that like some businesses will bet on their competitors' business names.
Yeah, right.
Really common. And it's just about, again, it's a strategy that can work and it can work really well. You just have to kind of know what you're doing.
Yeah, okay.
And you just have to kind of have a strategy in place for that.
How do you build this keywords list? Is it something that you put into Google? Is it a spreadsheet? What does it look like practically?
All of the above.
Okay.
So you can kind of build it out. Again, going back to like the keyword planner, and like you can also discover keywords through the performance tools that Google innately give you in their platform. If you have like a list of 50 keywords from somebody, or you've done them yourself, you can upload them as a CSV file, or you can manually type them in.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it is important to track that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can use, once you have started running your campaigns and they've been running for a while, for those negative keywords, you use your search term report. So again, this is all kind of housed in the Google Ads platform. You can have a look at your search term report, and that shows you what people are typing into the search bar and then what they're clicking through to your landing page or your website and what you're paying for. And then you can say, okay, well, that's irrelevant. I don't want my ads to show up for that.
So it's super important to stay on top of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Any closing tips? Quick three tips if you're looking to start doing Google Ads?
Understand your metrics. And whether that be that like when you first start working with somebody, you have them written down so you can just have those conversations with people and get them to explain it to you. Ideally, if you're doing like a reporting, like a monthly report with a client, they're kind of talking you through the report and what they're seeing. So I would say understand your metrics is number one. Be open to feedback as well, I think is probably the other thing, is when you're working with someone, they have a lot of knowledge around how to improve your conversion rate, how to improve your click-through rate. And so be open to taking that information. If it means design changes to a landing page or a website or moving information around so that it increases the chance of conversion, be open to that. And I think split testing as well. So be open to split testing different things. If someone wants to test a landing page, being open to testing that landing page as well.
Yeah, cool. And if people wanted Inflection to manage their ads, what would be the process?
So we can put a link in the show notes, book a free discovery call with me, and we'll talk about your campaign. We'll talk about your business. We'll find out, going back to kind of what we said in the very first episode, we'll make sure that it's a good investment for you. And when I say that is that we'll do the research to understand kind of what the search volume is, how much it's going to cost for you to show up in those particular areas, how competitive that space is and how competitive that industry is. And so, if anyone wants to talk about it, we'll go through it. We'll do that research as part of that free discovery call.
Yep.
And then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, good stuff. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Zara.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.